You've always been able to know someone's name the moment you meet them. One day, you thank a stranger, and they freeze. No one's called me that in centuries. It started when I was 5 years old. My kindergarten teacher introduced herself as Mrs. Stevenson, but I called her Elizabeth. My mother apologized profusely while Mrs. Stevenson stared at me, confused. Nobody had called her Elizabeth in years. She went by Liz or Mrs. Stevenson exclusively. By the time I turned 10, I understood my ability was unusual. Names would appear in my mind like they'd been written there in elegant script the moment I made eye contact with someone. I saw their true names, not nicknames or married names or chosen names. Just the name that belonged to them at their core. It became a parlor trick in college. Tell me my middle name, new acquaintances would challenge, and I'd oblige. They'd look unsettled, then impressed. How did you know that? I never tell anyone that. I learned to keep it to myself eventually. People don't like feeling exposed, and names are more intimate than most realize. I started pretending I was just good with names, or that I'd met them before, or that I'd seen their name tag. Anything but the truth. Which is why, on that rainy Tuesday afternoon at the museum, I slipped up. I was studying a medieval tapestry when a tall man in a gray sweater appeared beside me. Something about his presence felt different, heavier, more substantial. When I glanced at him, the name that materialized in my mind was unusual, Aldrich. Beautiful work, isn't it? He said, nodding toward the tapestry. Yes, I agreed. The detail is incredible. They don't make them like this anymore, he sighed. Craftsmanship is a dying art. We chatted about the exhibit for a few minutes. He was knowledgeable, speaking about historical techniques with surprising familiarity. When he mentioned he was new to the city, I offered restaurant recommendations. Thank you, that's very kind of you, Aldrich, I said without thinking. He froze. His eyes, which I now noticed were an unusual amber color, locked onto mine with a predatory focus. No one's called me that in centuries, he whispered. The museum seemed to grow quieter around us, the other visitors fading into the background. I'm sorry, I stammered. I must have misheard something. His head tilted slightly, studying me with new interest. No, you didn't mishear anything. That is my name. My first name. The one I was given in 1387. My mouth went dry. That's not possible. A smile spread across his face, revealing teeth that seemed just slightly too sharp. And yet, here we are. You, with your interesting ability, and me, with my longevity. I took a step back. What are you? A better question might be, what are you? He moved closer. In all my years, I've only met 2 others who could see true names. Both were quite valuable companions. Were? Time is unkind to most. His expression turned wistful. But you're something special. Tell me, what name do you see when you look at yourself in the mirror? The question startled me. I'd never thought to try. I don't know. You should try it sometime. Mirrors reveal truths we often hide from ourselves. He glanced at his watch. It's getting late. Would you join me for coffee? I have questions, and I suspect you do too. Every instinct told me to run, to make an excuse and leave. But curiosity, the same curiosity that had led me to test my ability over the years, won out. All right, I said. 1 coffee. As we walked toward the exit, he leaned closer. And what might I call you? Your current name, that is. I told him. He smiled. That's not the name I'd give you, but it will do for now. What would you call me? I couldn't help asking. That depends on what you are, Aldrich replied. Names have power, you know. They define us, bind us, sometimes trap us. He pushed open the door, letting in a gust of cold air. Some of us spend centuries trying to escape them. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the wet pavement. I followed him, wondering what names he'd carried through the centuries, and what my ability to see them truly meant. By the way, he said as we walked, I wouldn't try using my real name in public again. There are others like me who might not be as cordial upon being recognized. Others? I asked, a chill running down my spine that had nothing to do with the weather. Oh yes, Aldrich said, his amber eyes gleaming. Many others. Some old as time, some merely ancient. All of us hiding in plain sight. He smiled again. Until someone like you comes along and sees us for what we truly are. As we turned the corner, I realized I was walking into a world I'd always sensed existed beneath the surface of the ordinary, a world where names held power, and knowing them might be both a gift and a terrible danger. After dying, God informs you that hell is a myth, and everyone sins, it's okay. Instead, the dead are sorted into 6 houses of heaven based on the sins they chose. We arrived first at the House of Lust. House is a misleading term. It was more of a camp, spread over acres and acres of lush forest. There was a white sandy beach, nude, of course, full of copulating couples. There were little cabins sprinkled all along the path, from which orgasmic moans regularly came belting out. Men with 6-pack abs and women with perky breasts strolled by without even noticing me and God. They only had eyes for each other, tickling and pinching each other with flirtatious giggles. What do you think? God asked as we passed a 19-way taking place in a pool of champagne. Little cherubs flitted overhead armed with mops and cleaning supplies, thankfully. Lust is our most popular sin. I eyed the supermodel-like figures of a couple passing nearby, and could easily see why. You can look however you want. Hell, you can be whatever gender you want. No fetish is too taboo, and no desire can be denied here. It was quite tempting, but I wasn't ready to make a permanent decision here. Let's see the others, I told God. We carried on to greed. We passed rows and rows of mansions, each more opulent than the next. Some of them were so large that they would have had enough bedrooms to fit my entire hometown. And so many different styles. 1 second, we were in a beautiful French vineyard in front of a gorgeous chateau with the Alps in the background. The next second, a warm tropical beach with a modern mansion atop breathtaking cliffs. After that, a ski chalet in Colorado with a roaring fire and a hearth large enough to fit an ox. Each one had various Italian sports cars and Rolls-Royces parked in front, with the occasional smattering of boats, helicopters, etc. Any material desire you ever wanted, God explained. Your own world, where you can have everything. You want the Hope Diamond? You can fly to Washington, D.C. in your own solid gold helicopter and buy it from the Smithsonian. Hell, you can just buy the Smithsonian. Also tempting, but I decided to keep looking. Gluttony was next up. Tables and tables of the very finest foods, beautiful steaks cooked medium rare, butter poached lobster tail, fresh oysters on a half shell, exotic wines in dusty bottles that had been hiding in the cellars of the world's finest restaurants. Everyone had a glass of champagne in hand and simply lounged on couches and chairs near the tables, eating endlessly. As soon as the inhabitants took a bite, the food just instantly came back. My mouth watered even watching them. In every other house, the food is practically sawdust compared to gluttony, God explained. You haven't truly experienced heaven until you've been to gluttony. I shook my head, and we kept moving. Sloth was as you'd expect. An endless sea of the softest mattresses, stacked with cushions and pillows that made the story of the princess and the peace seem minimalist. Little angels visited each resident, giving them massages that made them all melt into their blankets. Wrath was, well, a lot like what I'd expect hell to be like. Fire, brimstone, whips, torture. You know, the works. Except here, you weren't the one being tortured. Every enemy you'd ever made in your real life was now under your thumb. Lots of people choose their fathers, God explained. Lots of grudges against parents in general, you know. But you're not limited to that. Someone beat you out for a big promotion back on Earth? Take your pound of flesh here. Then we arrived at envy. It looked, well, a lot like home. Go on in, God said, gesturing toward the door. I turned the knob and walked in. And found Emily waiting inside. She ran forward, wrapped her arms around my neck, and planted a kiss right on my lips. Welcome home, honey. I looked back toward God. Oh, don't be coy, he said. You have no secrets from me. We all know that you were in love with your best friend's wife. She didn't seem to hear him at all. She went back into the hall. We all know that you just settled for your own wife while secretly pining after her. Well, this is your chance to live happily ever after. I peered into the kitchen. Emily was baking something, wearing nothing but an apron. Her curly black hair fell softly over her shoulder as she whisked ingredients. She turned back, noticed I was observing her, and an enthusiastic smile spread across her face. It's what you've always wanted, isn't it? God whispered in my ear. I wanted to take it. God damn did I want to take it. But I shook my head. God seemed puzzled. You need to make a decision, he told me. I haven't seen Pride yet. He scoffed. No one ever wants Pride, trust me. Well, I want to see it. Pride was boring. Just a row of workbenches in a bare white room. I don't get it, I told God. Yeah, no one does, he answered. That's why no one ever chooses it. Doesn't cavorting in lust sound better than sitting here building little trinkets for the rest of eternity? Wouldn't you rather gorge yourself in gluttony? Or spend time with Emily in envy? I considered the options again. I picked Pride, I finally told him. He narrowed his eyes. What? Look at it. He gestured around the room again. There wasn't much to look at. Why would you choose this for the rest of time? Because you don't want me to pick it, I told him. If he was really God, he'd know what a contrarian I can be. And I knew he was hiding something, trying to pretend like Pride didn't exist. There was something special about it. God scowled back. Fine. He led me over to one of the workbenches. In the center, there was a black space. A blank, empty void that went on forever. Here's your universe, he said. You've got 7 days to get started. He took his seat at the bench next to me and went back to tinkering in his own world. After a long pause, he finally spoke again. You know, it might be nice for me to actually have some company for once. You wake up to find a glowing red countdown tattooed on your arm. No one else can see it, but everyone you touch can feel it. I noticed it the moment I woke up. A pulsing red glow from my forearm, bright enough to cast shadows across my bedroom ceiling. A countdown, 47 days, 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 58 seconds. 57. 56. I rubbed my eyes, certain I was dreaming. The numbers remained, their crimson light seeping through my fingers. I scrambled for my phone, snapping a picture, but the screen showed only my unmarked skin. When I looked down again, the countdown continued its relentless march. My roommate Emma knocked on my door. You okay in there? I heard you freaking out. I'm fine, I lied, pulling on a long-sleeved shirt. Just. Bad dream. At work, I struggled to focus. The numbers glowed through my sleeve, visible only to me, counting down to. What? The end of my life? The apocalypse? I couldn't shake the dread building in my chest. My coworker Jake brushed against my arm while reaching for coffee. He jumped back like he'd been shocked. What the hell was that? He demanded, holding his hand. What was what? When I touched you, his eyes narrowed. It felt like something vibrating. Like time itself. I stared at him. You felt it? Felt what? I hesitated, then pulled up my sleeve. Can you see anything on my arm? He looked confused. No. Should I? That night, I experimented. I called my sister and held the phone to my arm while we talked. She didn't react. But when the delivery guy handed me my pizza, our fingers touched briefly, and he dropped the box. Whoa, he breathed, eyes wide. Are you wearing some kind of watch? I just felt. I don't know how to describe it. What did it feel like? I pressed. He struggled for words. Like urgency. Like time running out. As the days passed, I learned more. People only felt it through direct skin-to-skin contact. Their reactions varied, some described it as terrifying, others as exhilarating. A few started crying without understanding why. I began avoiding touch entirely. Long sleeves, gloves, careful movements. The countdown continued, my isolation grew with my fear. What would happen when it reached 0? Would I die? Would everyone? On day 28, I broke down and told Emma everything. She didn't believe me until I touched her hand. Her face paled. Oh my God, she whispered. It feels like death and birth at the same time. How are you living with this? Not well, I admitted. Together, we researched mysterious countdowns, supernatural phenomena, anything that might explain what was happening. We found nothing concrete, just myths and legends of people marked by time. On day 40, a week from 0, I received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single sentence, not everyone is afraid of what you carry. The next day, a woman approached me at a coffee shop. Silver-haired, with eyes that seemed to hold centuries. May I sit? She asked, not waiting for an answer. I tensed as she sat across from me. Do I know you? No, she said simply. But I know what you're carrying. She extended her hand. May I? Hesitantly, I removed my glove and touched her fingertips. Unlike everyone else, she didn't flinch. Instead, she closed her eyes and smiled. Beautiful, she murmured. It's been so long since I felt one this strong. What is it? I whispered. What's happening to me? Her eyes opened. You're a timekeeper. One of the rare souls that can perceive the great transitions. Transitions? Moments when possibility crystallizes into certainty. When the universe makes a choice. She released my hand. Most never know they're happening. They're like invisible crossroads. But what happens when it reaches 0? Change, she said. Profound change. For you, most of all. She left me with more questions than answers, but something had shifted. The dread I'd carried for weeks began to transform into something else. Not quite hope, but curiosity. As the final day approached, I called everyone I loved. Said things I'd been afraid to say. Touched them deliberately, letting them feel the countdown. Some ran from the sensation. Others stayed, holding my hand, sharing the weight of whatever was coming. The final hour found me on a hilltop with Emma, watching the sunset. The countdown pulsed. Are you scared? She asked. Yes, I admitted. But also ready. As the numbers ticked toward 0, I felt something building within me. Energy gathering, like a storm before lightning strikes. Whatever happens, Emma said, squeezing my hand, I'm glad I felt it. I'm glad I knew. The world held its breath. For one heartbeat, everything stopped. The wind. The distant traffic. My own pulse. Then light exploded from my arm, not just red now but every color imaginable, shooting skyward in a brilliant column. I gasped as knowledge flooded my consciousness, threads of time, paths not taken, futures yet to form. I understand now. I wasn't marked for death. I was marked for transformation. As the light faded, I looked down at my arm. The countdown was gone, replaced by a small symbol that shimmered like a star. What happened? Emma asked, her voice hushed. Are you okay? I nodded slowly, feeling new awareness settling into place. I'm a timekeeper now, I said, the words feeling right as they left my lips. What does that mean? I took her hand, letting her feel the steady pulse of possibility that now flowed through me. No longer a countdown, but a rhythm. A promise. It means I help guide what comes next, I said. And I think there are others waiting for me. Somewhere in the distance, I felt them, other timekeepers, their symbols pulsing in harmony with mine. Calling me home.